and good morning, everyone, and welcome, Akshar Bhai. So, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Devashri, and I'm an EC student, semester 5. So we have with us Mr. Akshar Vastarpara. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Yeah, so he has graduated in the year 2016 from SCET, Sarvajanik College of Engineering and Technology. He is also the founder of VICHARAK company, a computer hardware company. Tell us more about your workspace. He has also worked on three major projects, which are maypole, a wireless storage device, chhavi, and wireless security-based system, and recently it's Vaaman, and a single board computer with an inbuilt FPGA. So we are very happy to have you on board, Akshar Bhai. It would be really nice if you could.
As you have mentioned, I am running one company. It's called VICHARAK, but there is another company. It's Wake, and in VICHARAK, we are doing some open source projects and most probably a hardware level or computer level works. For Maple, the wireless storage and the chhavi, I think they are on crowd supply and they are completely open source. Uh, and the Vaaman that we are going to launch sooner, it might be on a crowd supply or a Kickstarter, but it might not be an open source project because of the market that we are exploring. So that's what VICHARAK is all about.
Okay, yeah, great. So you might have a vague idea. I mean, you might have an idea about what we do, but let me just briefly state about us as well. So we started in year 2021 with the goal of connecting with techno-driven and like-minded people. And over the span of time, we have also broadened the horizon of the topics we take up. So again, I welcome you on behalf of my whole team. Actually, when I searched about you and all the projects you have done, it was really fascinating for me being the third year student and looking at the projects you have done and so far you have come. So this was like my first question, like how after completing your graduation in 2016, how was your journey to this your startup, Vicharak?
After graduation, I think I never wanted to do a job. So I never assigned myself to someone other company because I wanted to start my own business. But in the beginning, I wasn't clear it myself. I didn't know what to do. I never wanted to be in a technological space. I was a software engineer. I've done this, I think, IT engineering, but I never wanted to do anything related to the IT or anything related to the technological space. So for almost 1 year, I have served the local businesses. Like in Surat, there are textile, there is diamond, and there are other machineries businesses out there. So I was just surfing. Meanwhile, there is from my friend's software company where I used to go there and just sit and learn some basic website stuff because I didn't know what to do, and that's what I was passing my a year. But after a year, 2017, I suddenly I realized that I should try something into technological space uh, because somehow in college I was made myself to believe that I don't want to do a coding or I don't want to go into technological space. So I was accustomed to a thing like a businessman, but with the traditional businesses, like where I can manage stuffs, where I can do the management and all kind of stuff. I never wanted to like sit and just work on a computer for several amount of hours. But I think I can understand the stuffs, but I didn't wanted to do it. But in 2017, I got an idea along with my the past co-founder about the way that we should start something related to the smart home. And because smart home was completely electronics, I didn't know anything. Even the resistors and capacitors, I cannot tell a difference at that time. So all things, if I wanted to do a smart home, I have to learn everything on my own because there was no other person belongs with me who was related to the electronics. So that's how I started away. It's my first startup and it's still ongoing. And this is my like basic startup that I used to work. So gradually, I hired a person into the electronics into the way. I had some funding to provide a salary, but eventually after 1 year, I figured out that I don't have much more money to pay out the salaries. So, but I learned the electronics alongside the way. So I can do the other projects. So I started consulting as soon as long as supporting the wake and to develop the project that I have in mind. So that's how I started this whole electronic stuff. We gradually started learning this electronics and all kind of other stuff. But in 2020, I think I grew up to a 12 or 15 people staff. Still, I was doing the R&D into the Wake, the basic project that I wanted to do from the beginning. But we had the introduction of the FPGAs. I was never familiar with the FPGAs at back that time. So alongside with it, we have launched the maypole into the crowd supply, the chhavi, the NFC related projects. They were just a fun projects, and they are the side projects. Like it was not a major goal to us. It was just a we had an idea that we can do something like this, and we wanted to launch into the crowd supply. And that's why we do it. Our major projects are has never been launched apart from Vaaman yet. So we got to know about the FPGAs, and eventually there was an idea for me that I want to develop a single board computer which is fast as Raspberry Pi, but have a, a huge FPGA interface into it. Like there were Xilinx boards out there, but they were too less affordable. Like they are too pricey. If we match the same specification as the Raspberry Pi kind of processor that they have in the Xilinx family, or their Vivado shoots and all kind of things, that's too bulky. So I wanted to make something which is too easy with the FPGAs and that kind of stuff. So that's why I moved out all this hardware and the other stuff to the Vicharak, and I founded the another company. It's called Vicharak, and we are developing totally a computer or motherboard or that kind of level work on Vicharak. And the way we still are doing the smart home and the IoT related projects. So that's why that's what that's why we have that's how we I would arrive it here, and still in development phase. None of the products that I wanted to develop, I think it's being majorly launched, but we still are developing.
या दैट्स रियली इंस्पायरिंग मतलब हम लोग अभी हमारे थर्ड ईयर में एज इन अभी हमें टर्म प्रोजेक्ट्स आते हैं ना, तो एज इन आपने कैसे आपका पूरा जर्नी फ्रॉम आईटी लाइक यू न्यू फ्रॉम द बिगिनिंग कि आपको लाइक कोडिंग इज नॉट योर थिंग एंड देन यू शिफ्टेड, सो इट्स रियली इंस्पायरिंग कि यू डेवलप्ड दिस इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स माइंडसेट एंड ऑल. दैट्स रियली नाइस.
No,
So
no, no. The coding was not a thing for me, but eventually I started to do a coding.
okay.
There are 30 people working in here in Vicharak and Way, and I used to tell everyone कि मेरे को coding अच्छा नहीं लगता है, because I somehow there was a mindset that was given in a college that all of that you guys have, that it's just a coding. You don't actually know how it develops, how it works, and what it can do. What it can do is the major thing, and that we don't know. So after starting Wig, मैं like in college, to my colleagues who know me from college, मैं किसी को coding नहीं करने देता था. Like if they are doing coding, I used to tell them कि आप coding करोगे तो कुछ नहीं कर पाओ. But right now, and I never wanted to sit for 8 hours and just do a coding. But after starting a Wig, I can sit 14 or 15 hours a day and just do a coding. So it's not that I didn't like the coding, and I moved to the electronics. Coding is my major part. That's how मैंने ये पूरा चीज चालू किया. The thing is, uh, after you graduated from the college, or after you select a branch, like after you move from 12th to a college, we all don't know what we want to do. किसी को नहीं पता होता कि आपको क्या करना है. So it's not about the shifting branches, like mechanical guys are doing the IT guys are doing something else, and
Yes.
civil guys are doing the IT. But the major mindset that I have a problem with the students and with the all kind of faculties, and they consider the education as a market. Like there is no market out there for electronics, there is no market for the computer branch. When you are considering your first year or your selection of branch, you consider what is the market. So what we are going to do after college is should not be related to your market. Demand है, option है, वो कोई matter नहीं करता. If there is no demand, you should create your own. Because अभी के लिए electronics is in a downfall. Like मैं usually 5 or 6 colleges के contact में हूँ, और from last 3 years they have the list uh, inwards of the electronic students, because of the hype of the computer the people are earning. तो लोगों को लग रहा है there is no market for the electronics, but that should not be considered. You can do whatever you want, like if but the thing is, whenever you want to choose something to do, you should have an high interest. अगर आपको सिविल करना है, आफ्टर डूइंग द आईटी, आपको सिविल में इंटरेस्ट होना चाहिए, बिकॉज अदरवाइज यू वेस्ट योर टाइम.
Yeah, correct. So now let us move to the next question. So, being an electronics enthusiast, did it take some extra efforts? Did you face any difficulty while you were learning things about the electronics and all? Like, did you ever thought कि अब like ये थोड़ा difficult हो रहा है, and then कि like no something like giving up or something like that? Does the financial factor ever bother you in this field?
So, what whoever students are listening this, there are two aspects when you want to move to the electronics. For me, difficulty is not a concern. From 5 years, whatever I wanted to do, I'll figure out a way and I'll just implement it. But the main thing, if you look at when you want to go into the electronics field, uh, software startup is way easier than doing the hardware startup. Because hardware startup में आपको minimum 3 to 4 या 5 years लगते हैं. Software में आप 6 months, because software just you will require a computer. Yeah, efforts are there. There is not a problem. But eventually software में आप way easier implement कर सकते हो, even for the prototypes, even for the MVCs, MVPs and that kind of stuff. And if you look at the investors, they will not easily fall into the hardware startups because they would require a working prototype. For working prototype, you will require money, and for that time, from without a money and without a sufficient amount of knowledge, you have to move to the prototype. That's a huge deal. But it's not that difficult if you consider as a knowledge, because right now if you just have enough skills to search on a Google, you'll find everything. But I've seen people doing the IoT stuff. There are a number of peoples who are into the electronic startups are daily increasing. But don't think that you'll be succeeded in a 1 year. Like if you do, it might be a good thing, but on an average, hardware startups don't get succeed in 3 years or 4 years. So it's a huge amount of effort. But there is another irony. If you see the Zomato, you'll find that there is a Swiggy exactly and instantly built alongside with the Zomato, because it's just a software, and softwares are very easy to adapt and very easy to create. Like you want to create the same thing. But if you dominate the hardware for whatever you field are in, the same process from another competitor, I'm not saying they will not come, but it will take time. They cannot do it easily like you have done. If you have enough amount of product competency, or whatever kind of thing that you want to introduce, being an electronics, financial factor is a major concern. But right now, if we see the situation from the 10 years earlier, it's very easy. Like you can get the components from the websites and the other stuff. So only thing that you will require, I think, from me is the time that you need to have a patience for until you have a right prototype of your products.
The current education system is like failing to do this such kind of work, right? So the student always go for the marks and all about, and after the exam they just forgot what they are studying, right? And what you are saying that connecting these things, like there is one topic and we need to go in this depth. Okay, so we need to like generate some curiosity over topics which we are interested in, right? That's how we can get
Whatever
this knowledge.
most look for my perspective, right now, I think in our company there are 30 people, and we used to work here. We still used to work here. There are at least 8 or 9 people sitting here at up to 8 p.m. daily, because almost 7:30 everyone leaves, because I only hire people who have an extreme interest into the whatever field that they are going to do the work. Because I just don't want to excellence them, because I want to excellence them for them. If you are working onto something, I want them to utilize their time on a highest level. I don't, I really don't like wasting your time. So if you are not enjoying, or if you are not having an interest for whatever you like, you just don't come here for money. Money is fine, but if you have an high end interest, whatever I'll give it to you, you figure out the way on your own. So if you are in computer, it's fine that you should like the mechanical stuffs. But if you want to pursue mechanical, start pursuing now. Go with your high level interest, because when you have an high end interest, you will have a maximum output. That's the thing. Like you consider marks as the output, marks are not the output. What you learn and what you can do with your whatever the skills are, that's the output. So it will not just be forcibly or like ratta maar kya aayega. It only comes with the genuine interest.
Understand. So, can you tell about what's your company vision? Like, which are what are your future plans that you want to create?
Okay. So basically, I never wanted to do the two branches, Veg and Vicharak. I always, the Veg is still the major IoT portion that I am going to do. There are several projects that are in planning. Uh, the thing is, back into 2000 up to 2019 or 20, I believe the computer market is exaggerated. The term exaggerated meaning there is nothing you can do better in the computers. Like you see the 10-year graphs that has been invented into the computer field, the major graphs like the 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 like the keyboard, the trackpad, and the Wi-Fi and that kind of stuff. They always increases the speeds. They're like if you see Apple had moved to the total M1 or M2, that's total new. But apart from it, everything is the same. So I thought it's saturated and we cannot do anything about it. But when I got to learn about the FPGAs, I think there is some space where we can do some stuffs related to the FPGA, because you guys might not know, there is one term it will be a popular. It's called heterogeneous computing, where they want like CPU has its extreme level of processing this stuff. So you'll require another stuff which can do faster performing than the CPU. So there are many startups, like at least hundreds of them, which are developing the AI chips, different AI chips. Like there are analog, the silicons, the photonics, and that kind of startups. So there is one new space that's being built into the whole new computing level world, which is called the heterogeneous computing, where alongside with the CPU there would be another level of hardware which will accelerate your program, because AI has its limits. People wants to do much more faster stuff. The CPU is sequential. The CPU is sequential. It means it can only run on by instruction by instruction by instruction. So there is a call for parallelism work, and that's why I think I founded the Vicharak. I want to do something related to the FPGA in this computing world. It would be Eventually, the Vaaman that you have seen, there is another board which will come or 3 or 4 months later. It's based on the RK3588. RK3588 is the high-level embedded processor. It's world's fastest embedded processor out there from the rock chip, and it can run up to like 2.9 gigahertz. And it's a very huge thing in the embedded market. And later on, I think I'm planning to move more like x86 architecture and that kind of stuff with the Vichara. So that's why it's a computer hardware company with the Vichara.
Yeah, great. So there are two projects, Maypole and Chavi. In those two projects, you have used this processor ESP32. So why this processor in particular?
So Maypole and Chavi was the idea. Like Maypole was to how do we arrive at the Maypole? So in Surat, there are embroidery machineries, approximate 1 lakh of them. So for the embroidery machineries, they don't have the Ethernet or Wi-Fi interface to load their design. So what they do is plug in the pen drive, upload the design into the machineries, and whenever they want to change the designs from the designers, they need to replug the pen drive, plug it into their PC, and just download and just put the pen drive again and upload the design into the machinery. So that's when I thought, let's develop a pen drive for them, which is directly connected to the cloud, and they can directly upload the designs from wherever they are. Like when the designers are not sitting into their offices, so they from wherever the designers are, they can directly upload the pen drives from the machine. It was not limited to the embroidery interfaces. Like, there are so many industrial machines out there with the standard USB 2.0 port, which can the old machineries. New one might have the Ethernet or Wi-Fi, but the old machineries can use these functionalities. But it was a part of side project, and I wanted to make it completely open source. So for the open source, there must be a thing where people can adapt to it easily. So if I am putting a microcontroller, people should work or people can work on that microcontroller very easily. And ESP32 is a best option after Arduino that all of the students, hobbyists, researchers, they can adapt to it because of the infrastructure, open source communities. So that's why we have adopted to the ESP32 because it's more in common, and whoever wants to make this kind of thing can adapt to it easily.
So yeah, so you आपने पूरा यानी सूरत का ऐसा मार्केट देखा कि टेक्सटाइल इंडस्ट्री कैसे काम करती है और उसमें जो मशीनरी है वो कैसे यानी फंक्शन करती है, राइट? और आपने अपना वहाँ पे इंजीनियरिंग सॉल्यूशन दिया कि लेट्स समथिंग मेक फ्रॉम दिस, लाइक, राइट? सो आई गेस
Mhm.
दैट्स एक्जेक्टली students needs to look like, this is real engineering. You observe the problems out there in the industry and you try to make new solutions, right?
Never there is a thing that can be adapted to in generalized scenario. So we keep as an entrepreneur journey for me कि आप कोई प्रॉब्लम देखो उसको सॉल्व करो, आप प्रॉब्लम देखो सॉल्व करो. इट शुड नॉट बी इट कि आपको प्रॉब्लम देखना ही है और आपको उसको सॉल्व करना ही है. लाइक यू शुड नॉट अडेप्ट टू वन जनरल सिनेरियो एज एन एंटरप्रेन्योर. There are things that there is a no problem, but you create a solution or you create a new way of approaching it in a total different way. So it can be a problem, it cannot be a problem. Everything comes to sometimes you have a trigger point कि चलो ये मेरे को करना है, but to reach that trigger point you need to go through one process. और वो process एक ही जगह से आती है. वो as I mentioned earlier, you should have an interest. अगर आप कुछ भी सीख रहे हो, सपोज आई एम लर्निंग मैकेनिकल, आई डोंट वांट टू डू मैकेनिकल इन माय होल लाइफ, बट आई हैव लर्न द मैकेनिकल स्टफ फॉर 1 ईयर विद द हाई इंटरेस्ट, और मैं मैकेनिकल छोड़ देता हूँ, मेरे को केमिकल करना है, बट दैट पोर्शन ऑफ लर्निंग विल बी यूजफुल इन लेटर इन सम अदर सिनेरियोस. सो आपको कोई भी किसी को भी लाइक मेरी स्टोरी जैसे ही आपकी स्टोरी होगी वो ऐसा नहीं होता. कोई भी लाइक यू शुड आपको बचपन से ये इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स में इंटरेस्ट होना चाहिए, बचपन से आप जुगाड़ो की होना चाहिए. एवरेज बेटर वो कोई चीज नहीं होता। जब आपको लगता है कि मेरे को ये करना है विद द इंटरेस्ट, देन यू शुड डू इट। अगर प्रॉब्लम का सॉल्यूशन कर रहे हो ठीक है, नहीं कर रहे हो आप कुछ नया चीज करो, तो दैट शुड बी इट।
Yeah, so like everybody has their right time to click.
हाँ, तो वो क्लिक करने के लिए आपको एक प्रोसेस फॉलो करनी पड़ती है, आप बैठे बैठे क्लिक नहीं होगे। Without the
Correct.
without the right amount of time pursuing your own things, you cannot get the click.
Yeah, correct. So you said like your most recent project was Vaaman. So can you tell about that?
Okay, so आप लोगों के जितने viewers हो, I don't know they really know about the FPGAs, but as I discussed earlier, FPGAs were it's used for parallelism. As I mentioned कि computers के जो sequential limitations हैं that can do with the its core own architecture, people wants to solve it with the different level of architectures. Why FPGAs can be a solution of it? There are no definition that FPGAs will be the next level heterogeneous programming, because people are trying many ways to develop this thing, but it can be a solution. There is a probability FPGA will be used in your common computers or common phones. So that's how I think I should. I wanted to do the FPGA thing. So what is the start? So FPGAs are not common. No people, even this hardware developers, have any familiarity with the FPGAs. Why? Because that question I needed to find. Why is that people aren't familiar with the FPGAs? If I think it's very nice thing to have in your hardware. तो पता चला कि because of the market that was being pitched by the companies like Xilinx. It's a if you don't know, AMD has acquired the Xilinx in the whole sole purpose the same thing कि eventually AMD के processors में inbuilt FPGA आने वाला है, amount of some time. And they have introduced the server level EPYC series with the FPGA inbuilt already. Like in 2024 or 25, there will be x86 plus FPGA for the server level. Per consumer solutions may be desktop or embedded processors may be, FPGA might be an option that can be integrated to alongside with the CPU. So Xilinx के shoots अभी आप डाउनलोड करोगे तो 80 GB के रहते हैं, और द हार्डवेयर was way too costlier. तो वो जनरल पीपल कभी अडेप्ट नहीं कर पाए. लाइक ESP32 is a popular because there are many things. अगर उसका cost $20 होता per chip, then it was never going to be a popular. Just because of $2 or $3 pricing that they had, there should be a अगर आपको कोई प्लेटफॉर्म चाहिए which should be adaptable to anyone, there are so many things that needs to be considered: pricing, the availability, the affordability, and the accessibility. तो uh, अगर आपको अभी कोई FPGA बोर्ड में काम करना है तो आपको वो इजीली आपको कुछ नहीं मिलेगा कि आप वो तो uh, we figured out a way let's ditch Xilinx because of their pricing and their shoots. They are the winners, of course. So we need to do a major portion of providing the examples onto the Vaaman, or developing the tutorials. So people उसको develop कर सके. पर the Phoenix and the Leica is, and there are so many other FPGA companies out there which are developing the low level and nice FPGAs in recent 5 years. तो गोल ये है कि वामन में FPGA डाल के we want to solve this Linux problem and start pitching the FPGAs to the basic consumer level people like the students. So Raspberry Pi का major target ये था कि educational institutes. Later on, it moved to the another things as an because it was a nice useful thing to have in your everywhere. पर मेजर गोल रास्पबेरी पाई लोगों का ये था कि उसको एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट में सिखाना है. तो वी केम विद द सेम पर्पस फॉर द एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट्स कि अभी के बच्चों को इफ वी यूज्ड टू टीच द एफपीजीएस फ्रॉम द फोर्थ स्टैंडर्ड और थर्ड स्टैंडर्ड, They are simple level things. They are just logics like and or not gets. If you can do the basic one plus one is equal to two, you can learn the FPGAs. But there should be a platform for people who adapt push. So first is educational institutes where we can sell it. It's very affordable in price. Like it might be 9,000 to 10,000 rupees. If you just buy only a FPGA development kit, minimum it would cost with the same configuration. It would cost you 10,000 to 11,000 rupees. So we'll sell this both of these things in single board. We'll develop the solutions, the easier to adapt, easier to develop the features and that kind of stuff. So there is one market which is the educational institutes, but it's not limited to it. There are stuffs that people are doing it in AI and image processing. Like if you want to develop a face recognition task, so suppose you have the Raspberry Pi and you want to do a face recognition. What CPU does is it consumes the facial recognition program will consume all of your process. You cannot do the other stuff alongside with it because AI would require or the image processing and the neural model processing or whatever kind of stuff would require some amount of processing time. So and it cannot do a high level processing obviously. So if we use the Vaaman, you can completely do the image processing into the FPGA, and just like if I want to identify my face, FPGA just will tell the processor part that this is Akshar, and then processor can do anything else. Like it can see it can transfer this thing to the cloud, or it can there would be a dashboard with the keyboard and the displays and to the amount of the another things that can be done in the parallel. But there are other things like if you want to have 10 UARTs or 10 USBs in hardware level accuracy UART and USBs, you cannot do it without the external circuitry like the external chipsets like FTDIs and the USB controller and that kind of stuff. But with the FPGAs, you can develop, you can put the USB stack easily into it and can have the 10 USB hardware level interfaces. In machineries, the people are using the already Raspberry Pi and Spartan as a two different boards. So in machineries, there would be another option with the same board and that kind of stuff. So, but eventually, I want to move into this heterogeneous programming space where we have the faster computing with the FPGAs and other faster chipsets.
Yeah, yeah, that's really the whole way. Like I am right now in third year, so that was really nice to know how basically you should uh, like start with project work and all that kind of thing. So, like, were you ever conflicted with your interests in your college days? Like you said that during your college time you were not very much into coding, but then you found then you realized that the why and hows of the codings, and that's why then you developed. So, apart from that, were you ever conflicted with the subjects or your interest in the college days?
I was not having any interest in college. That was my biggest, I think, a problem for now. I think I wasted my 4 years in college. Uh, People should not regret these things because I was like a guy who wants to enjoy its time, the college time. I think I should have learned so many things back then which can be useful to me now. But as we always say, there should be a no regret. But for the people who are working in the third year or fourth year or first year or second year, they still have a time that I don't have right now. So thing is, I didn't have any interest. That's the thing. मेरे को पता ही नहीं था मेरे को क्या interest है. Or none of I think 95% majority people still don't know what is their interest, and that's the biggest problem. मेरे को coding नहीं आता था ऐसा नहीं था. I like मेरे को कोडिंग करना नहीं था आता नहीं था ऐसा नहीं लगा इन लैब एग्जाम्स इवन आफ्टर लाइक 20% अटेंडेंस मैंने कुछ लेक्चर्स भी नहीं अटेंड किया था आई जस्ट वेंट विदाउट द प्रिपरेशंस बट लैब एग्जाम्स में मैं फिर भी प्रैक्टिकल परफॉर्म कर लेता था खुद से ही 1 घंटे में सीख के बैठ ऐसा नहीं था मेरे को कोडिंग आता नहीं था इट वाज नॉट एन इंटरेस्ट बट मेरे को करना नहीं था, एंड दैट एटीट्यूड was being uh, like was being inputted by the surroundings. मेरा सराउंडिंग और हमारा सराउंडिंग सबका अभी के लिए तो सेम ही है, पर हमको ये लाइक एक काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स दैट वर बीइंग टॉट टू अस, एंड आई थिंक उसकी वजह से मेरे को नहीं पता था मेरे को क्या करना था. तो there, if you have, my major concern is you should find your interest, or for that what I tell everyone who do an internship here, or who do at least a try. I don't say then that you should do electronics hardware engineering. I say then you should try. आपको अगर इंटरेस्ट पता नहीं है देन यू शुड स्टार्ट ट्राइंग द डिफरेंट फील्ड्स. आप सॉफ्टवेयर ट्राई करो, 2 महीने 3 महीने सॉफ्टवेयर ट्राई करो. आपको नहीं अच्छा लग रहा है देन यू गो टू द इवेंट मैनेजमेंट, यू गो टू द लाइक कुछ भी ट्राई करो. आपको इंटरेस्ट नहीं पता है तो आप इंटरेस्ट फाइंड करने की ट्राई करो एटलीस्ट. तो वो शुड बी दैट दैट अगर मैं सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग में था तो इट शुड नॉट बी कि मेरे को सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग में ही रहना है, पर दैट काइंड ऑफ थिंग शुड बी देयर.
या मतलब सही बात है, लाइक एज इन जब इंटरेस्ट ना पता हो तो देन यू शुड ट्राई डिफरेंट फील्ड्स टू नो योर इंटरेस्ट एंड लाइक नो योर लाइक्स एंड डिसलाइक्स, so that's more clear for the person.
Yeah, like there is no definition of success like that कि आपको यही करना है और इससे ही आप सक्सेस होते हो. एवरी सिनारियो हैज इट्स ओन डेफिनेशन. ऐसा जरूरी नहीं है कि आपको यही करना पड़ेगा, बट द थिंग इज व्हाट यू कैन नॉट लीव इज स्टॉप ट्राइंग. आपको ट्राई करना रहना पड़ेगा, देन यू विल फाइंड समथिंग.
In terms of electronics and computer, like what do you think, where are we going, and what are the next segments of the next segment students should start working on?
I think uh, people started, or at least in India, Indian students should start looking into the VLSI space, because if we consider the chip designing part, even if you are in computer engineering, even if you are in software engineering, start looking for an option for the VLSI space, because the chip designing is the major requirement in India. The way it's going, there will be a huge requirement for the VLSI space. So if you just consider the market thing, then VLSI is going to be a market, and it is very easy. Like it's not a cheap designing itna bada task hai. Nothing is bada. So there is one thing. There are many major AI chipset startups that are coming. कि वो as I told, heterogeneous computing is the next level thing that people wants to explore. तो अगर स्टूडेंट्स को कंप्यूटर फील्ड में, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स की कंप्यूटर फील्ड में जाना है और कंप्यूटिंग प्लेटफॉर्म्स में जाना है, तो आप ये देखो कि कौन सी कंपनीज काम कर रही है एआई चिपसेट्स में. हाउ डू दे आर कॉल्ड द सो कॉल्ड एक्सेलरेटर्स, एक्सेलरेट द प्रोसेस अलोंगसाइड विद द सीपीयूज. तो कौन सी कंपनीज डिफरेंट लेवल्स ऑफ द एक्सेलरेटर्स बना रही है. FPGA is major thing to learn even if you want to go to VLSI. So start learning the FPGAs, because eventually you'll need, I think FPGAs are going to be uncommon. So eventually you all need to learn the FPGAs, or at least a part of it, or at least to be understood of it. Other thing is, as per the Indian students, like when we think about the computers in terms of the hardware, it's an alien thing from us. Like alien thing is like if you think about the just making the some kind of thing like a MacBook Air on your own. तो आपको थॉट ही नहीं आएगा कि like you can do MacBook Air on your own. Like you can develop some kind of computer on your own. It's very easy to do it. There are so many things that needs to be learned, infrastructures that need to be built, but uh, right now with the amount of resources out there, you can do it very easily. So it's not, I think, from the what all of your background is right now and the environment is, you people are limited to the IoT and the basic electronic stuff like the microcontrollers, the 8 megas and the basic. It's not limited to it. आप लोग और explore करो, like how the x86 work. There is a huge boom of the RISC-V. RISC-V is going to be a huge a thing, and it's definitely will be coming, and there will be a consumer level. There are already a consumer level laptops, and the things are being introduced, but there will be more things out there alongside with the AI. तो आप रिस्क फाई एक्सप्लोर करो, आप रिस्क फाई के बेस चिपसेट्स कैसे बना सकते हो वो एक्सप्लोर करो. व्हाट यू कैन डू इज पुट आउट द लिमिटेशंस कि चलो मेरे को एक, बिकॉज अभी के लिए आफ्टर आफ्टर योर कॉलेज फिनिशेस द पीपल who are coming to me don't even know the basic name of the microcontrollers of the different companies. तो आप लोग यहाँ पे हो कि आपको लोग को भी ये भी नहीं पता है कि ये माइक्रो कंट्रोलर्स है, और यू नीड टू रीच वेयर यू नो द x86 and the ARM, the RISC-V and other architectures, how they're built on. If you want to build your own motherboard based on these processors, how do you can do it. तो डेफिनेटली हार्ड है, बट इट्स नॉट अनबीटेबल. तो अगर स्टूडेंट्स को स्पेस देखना है ना, कि लाइक यू फाइंड अ स्पेस वेयर यू वांट टू वर्क ऑन, देन जस्ट लिमिट आउट दैट पोर्शन एज वेल. कि आप कंप्यूटर स्पेस में सोचते नहीं हो कि मैं कुछ कर सकता हूँ, तो यू शुड आल्सो स्टार्ट फिगरिंग आउट दैट स्टफ एज वेल. क्योंकि सी इन विचारक the Vaaman that we have developed, out of 30 people, I haven't worked anywhere or any places where they develop the SBCs or motherboards. I am completely newbie and unexperienced guy, same as you. I haven't been to the like a high level college, or nor I am into the Silicon Valley where there is a surrounding of the different level hardware. I'm into the Surat. Ahmedabad is a major thing than Surat. So I don't have any infrastructure. I didn't have any experience. I don't have any knowledge. I am same as all of you guys. The thing is, Vaman में जितने भी लोग ने काम किया है ना, even from the company, no one was in our company. No one is experienced from the another company. Everyone has learned from the scratch, and it was just being built on totally trial and error. And even for the first prototype that we had done, it was running 90% for the first time. Like एक SBC design करने के लिए it takes almost 1 year, because it has so many interfaces and parallels. Vaaman has at least 1,000 components like registers and capacitors. So when there are uh, MNCs in India which develop the electronics boards from last 22 years. If you see, there are obviously Infosys, Volansys, and there are many other in the Bangalore-based companies as well. What we see as an Indian mindset for now or until now into the hardware field is we just provide the solutions. We don't develop our own products. Majorly, we want to go for the solutions for the like if we are developing the IPs. We are developing the IPs for the Qualcomm. We are developing IPs for the even AMDs as well. But what we do is just provide these solutions. We don't actually think that we can build the AMD on ourselves. So that's the key thing that we all should look up to it. That if I should be able to do it, I, I haven't any special skill set or any special thing apart from all of you, or like I don't have any special infrastructure. I don't have any special knowledge or any kind of thing. So if I can do it, I think most 80% or 70% of people you can do it. So it's not limited to the IoT. IoT is a huge game changer, but we should also be start looking into this space. इस अभी कोई एक्सपीरियंस की जरूरत नहीं है. ओनली थिंग यू रिक्वायर्ड इज जस्ट आप लोग अडेप्ट करो, ट्राई करो और एग्जीक्यूट करो.
That's really inspiring, like starting from the scratch and learning all of the things. That's really nice. So, yeah. So, as India have no infrastructure yet to accommodate this progress, what mentality we all should adapt to be in front line amongst them, in spite of not having an infrastructure?
Yeah, so that's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Look, if you want to stay in India, there are so many problems. Before even starting the startup, I knew कि मेरे को problems होने वाला. Like if you want to import the component, there is a huge customs problem. custom of that's the facts. Like if you want to stay in India, you'll need to have some hard processes from where you want to go in. So like if आप शेंजेन में जाओगे तो you can find the all kind of first microprocessors just in a 10 kilometer of radius. In even in Surat, I cannot find a one processor which is being sold. So that's the infrastructure I'm talking about. But we don't have it, so that's the real thing. But it doesn't mean we can't have it or we cannot build it. So mentality should be in terms of कि we should decide कि अगर हमको करना है और नहीं करना है तो then we should just use all of their products and be a consumer for a long time. That's what we are just consumers for them, like for all the other companies apart from India. We are the consumer. They develop the products, they sell them here, and we buy them here and we consume their things. तो अगर आपको कंज्यूमर से डेवलपर और मैन्युफैक्चरर की फील्ड में जाना है तो मेंटालिटी शुड बी अडॉप्टेड इज कि इवन दो कोई इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर नहीं है, वी चाइना हैज बिल्ट इट इन लास्ट 25 years. Their government has supported it, but I think we that what they don't have is a democracy. They cannot do anything without the government. हमारी गवर्नमेंट सपोर्ट नहीं करती, इट्स नॉट अ क्लेम, इट्स जस्ट अ एक्सक्यूज. गवर्नमेंट सपोर्ट नहीं करती है, नहीं, दिस इज अ डेमोक्रेसी. आपको कोई आई थिंक गवर्नमेंट्स के प्रॉब्लम्स हो गए, but it's not a huge problem that you cannot avoid. Start building the things. Right now you'll find any components from anywhere in the world, just order it, find the right online resources, start learning the Google. और एक विलिंगनेस होनी चाहिए कि अगर मेरे को ये करना है देन यू वांट टू डू इट आफ्टर so many, even of the there are so many problems. आपको ये करना है, so that mentality should be adopted कि आपको question करना है क्या, if you want to be a consumer or if you want to start developing on your own things, and if you want to develop on your like your own things, you just need to figure out a way.
Yeah, that's correct.
So recently, like our government, like electronics minister of our India, Ashwini Vaishnav, has just launched some kind of campaign on the semiconductor, right? So, like, is that benefiting you in somehow in future or some?
Look, the process is not benefiting itself because when it comes to government and the other regulatories, like all of us wants to move into the semiconductor space. Why? Because of the money. Like when Vedanta Group is trying, the Tata Group is trying, why they want to move to the semiconductor space is because of the money. Like Intel was not built to make a money. Like they all wanted to make the money, but it like Robert Noyce and the More, and they didn't wanted to do a money. They were having a high interest, or their mind totally floats onto the things how the little transistors can do this amount of the big things. So uh, yet कुछ भी हो रहा है that would be a beneficial, but from my point of view only putting the money and the loans and the infrastructure won't help you. You will need a people who can run the things, who knows these things. Like हमको सिर्फ सेमीकंडक्टर बिल्ड करना है. It's the main problem that we are facing is uh, we we need to make something like them कि उन लोगों ने एप्पल का प्रोसेसर बनाया, then we should start making their processor. That's the main problem. वो लोग अभी क्या काम कर रहे हैं, start working what they are working on. Like why you cannot beat them, why you cannot make something that don't even think about. They didn't like. अगर आप imagine करो why we are at much better place than our previous seniors. Like if you are in 2000s or 1990s in India, if you are in 1990s in electronics, you wouldn't even know that Apple is developing the Newton or that kind of boards. There is a touch touch kind of device, touch panel kind of device that Apple is being worked on because there was no source of knowledge. Right now, in our generation, 2022, we have all sorts of knowledge as same as they have. We just don't have infrastructure, but a real thing that would require is the knowledge, and knowledge we have. Like if you want to build something, You can everything find from the Google or the internet. The main problem has been solved only by them. They have provided you the right amount of access of the knowledge and very easy. So that, like, if you don't know, how many of your friends in your third year are willing to go outside for the better future or better career? It, yes.
Yeah, like there are a lot of people there. They are like from now onwards they are preparing for IELTS and TOEFL, and their like main target is for right now they are looking for Germany and Canada mostly. There are very less people are willing to work in India or like have their own work started in India itself.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, it's I don't question the people who wants to go out them, that why everyone has their own choices. But the major thing is from me is he we all want to develop a nation where the infrastructure should be increased at the developed countries. But I think even if we look at ourselves and if we look at our surroundings, we don't want to compromise ourselves. Like, we, for if agar हमारी बात आएगी, if we have better opportunity in USA, we'll go it. We actually don't care about the developed nations. Uh, हाँ, अदर्स शुड बी कॉम्प्रोमाइज, अदर लोगों को कॉम्प्रोमाइज करना चाहिए, मेहनत करनी चाहिए, बट वी डोंट do it, and that's fine. Like, if I am working, I have this amount of experience and interest, but I think I still want to learn so many things into the computer field. If I go to Silicon Valley, it will exaggerate all these things by some number of number force, because I'll find companies that I'll meet people that I'll meet so many people having a great ideas. But for me, if I wanted to build an infrastructure or that kind of companies in India, I really needed to figure out how this Indian system works. I need to figure out if I want to train. Like, there are uh, uh, in like, I am providing the internships in the Linux kernel development in Surat. I think there, if you look at the Linux kernel internships from whole software perspective for the computer science students, you will find none in even Gujarat. There are so less amount of internships where you can learn how the Linux kernel is being built. So for me, I wanted to find out a way where I can build the infrastructure, and I cannot find out the way without being actually being here. कि मेरे को यहाँ पे रहना पड़ेगा, मेरे को पूरी प्रोसेस समझनी पड़ेगी, where we are, what is the problem with the government, what is the problem with the departments, and what can we do better. So uh, this is a thing, like, but still there are Discord communities, there are Slack communities. So to communicating with the right minded people is very easy from being them. So it's not a huge problem कि आप बाहर जाओ के अंदर यहाँ पे रहो. But if you want to stay in here, there will be a huge opportunity, that I'm sure of, because uh, if you will find the right product, the people who will be work who wants to work on your product, you will find the right amount of people. Because in America, अगर आपको 10 electronics hardware engineers ढूंढना है, it's very difficult. If in India, you'll find them. They don't have the experience, but if you give them the enough time, and if you have the right amount of patience, then eventually they'll able to learn. That's the infrastructure thing that we need to follow up on.
Yeah. So basically, I think like why these like why us prefer going out rather than be in India is like that is where they get a head start rather than being in India. So like suppose as in here like as you are developing this whole lot of community. So maybe that's the hard way. That's why people are not really inclined towards it and preferring going out.
Yeah, because ये तो, like, this thing, like, we always choose the easiest way at the first. That's like, if I, ऐसा नहीं है कि, like, I still tells all of my staff ऐसा नहीं कि I couldn't have an opportunity to go to the abroad.
Yeah.
Like I did have the opportunity, और अगर मेरे को अभी abroad जाना है, it's way easier for me. Like it's not I was like in a family where I don't afford these things. I can afford these things in the beginning. So it was my choice. I also planned in second or third year I was going for the GRE, and I was planning for the USA, I think. But at some point in fourth year, I realized that whatever I wanted to do in my life, I want to do it in here. uh, I had some kind of a way that whatever I want to do, it's I want to do it in here. So I just I from 10th I wanted to go into the USA. From 10th, people start because I was in 2010 when I was in 10th. ત્યારે in that time there was no huge blow of going outside of the countries. But from 10th I wanted to go to the US. But eventually I later find out that I want to stay here and I want to build things here. There are so many benefits of doing an entrepreneurial journey here. You'll find uh, most basic thing is you'll find the human resource. That's why I'm staying in here. If I want to like for the FPGA, why I'm pushing FPGAs is you see FPGAs are too less dominated in market. So even in USA, even in Germany, even in Japan, there is no huge bloom of the FPGAs yet. So there are very less amount of people working there. So अगर कोई बूम आने वाला है where people will start working on FPGAs, they all have to put the same amount of effort. अगर यूएसए में भी कोई किसी को प्रोडक्ट डेवलप करनी है, they will need to find the 10 people who can work on the FPGAs, and they need to teach them the FPGAs. So when it comes to that, we all are in same page. पर हमारे पास the key factor is we have more people, like we have so many people who can learn the FPGAs while they don't have the people who want to learn these things. And we have like we can do the same thing in less amount of course. उसको अगर मेरे को FPGA डेवलपर अमेरिका में चाहिए, then I need to at least pay him 3 or 4 lakhs per month. मेरे को same amount of money मैं I think I can go for 3 or 4 or 5 people. And that's like with the same amount of investment we can have the throughput of 5x. So that's how I look it for the embedded and the FPGA stuff. And eventually when you will have a high-end product, then you can pay the same amount of them. But for that you need to grow to the market. For them you need to dominate the market and to have the right amount of sales.
Yeah, correct. So yeah, moving ahead. China's PCB are of better quality at low cost. So what is the specialty of KCB PCB company?
After 4 or 4 years starting from the embedded, there was a major problem for me that I was seeing is there is no we all are in there is one huge player in India for prototyping is PCB power. So let's look at the PCB power codes. I want to go for the two layer or full start with the two layer circuitry. So if I want to go build the two layer circuits with them, they'll cost around 2000 sorry 3000 to 3500 with the same size, with the faster building time. Like PCB Power is going to build the same circuitry for 7 days. JLC PCB, or there are so many same kind of PCB manufacturers like JLC PCB in China, can do this thing in 300 rupees. So the basic question for me कि वो 300 rupees में बना रहा है और PCB Power is selling me 3500 rupees. So it's almost a 10x thing. तो और मेरे को चाइना से कोई प्रोटोटाइप चाहिए तो इट टेक्स ऑलमोस्ट 10 days कि वो 2 दिन में बना तो लेते हैं और वो 2 दिन में शिप करेंगे यहाँ पे आएंगे तो सो देन वी स्टार्टेड एक्सप्लोरिंग द मैन्युफैक्चरिंग ऑप्शंस कि एक्चुअल में इंडिया में इतना कॉस्टली हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा है देन वी फिगर आउट कि द वे दे आर चार्जिंग 3500 एक्चुअल में इतना कॉस्टली नहीं है बिकॉज एज पर इंडियन व्हाट वी आर डूइंग कि चलो कोई नहीं बना रहा है ना तो हम बना रहे हैं then we are the explicit material, and we charge them in very much of like we are kind of elites, and we can charge them whatever we want. So that's not the thing. We can, I'm not saying कि हम 300 rupees में ही PCB बना के देंगे, पर we can be in between them कि 3,500 की जगह में अगर I can prototype in 2,200 rupees and give them in 3 or 5 days, then it would be a major solution for the Indian prototypes customer. But because in jails eventually you need to pay shipping, and shipping is also 330 to $350, and there is another time delays and that kind of thing. So if we combine shipping and 300 rupees, then the cost is the same, the 2,200 rupees. So that's what we want to try.
That's it for today, guys. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and do follow us on Instagram. See you in the next episode.